Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, all of Philadelphia, all around the world. It's your boy, Jason Avant. I'm here with my main man, Quintin Mikell, and this is the Q&A show on Inside the Birds platform, YouTube channel, and also Amazon Music, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you can find Inside the Birds, you can find the Q&A show. We're always excited to be with you guys. We have a great time explaining the game, our experiences, our stories, everything about the Eagles, and also other sports teams as well. So Q, my man, co-host Quintin Mikell, ladies and gentlemen, what's up, my man?
What's going on, man? It's a good time of the year, summertime, kids out of school, having a good time, and nothing better than talking birds and sports and having some fun with my main man, Jay, man.
We are ready. We're excited. Summertime is here. We still have a lot to talk about because there's a lot of unanswered questions for the Eagles. There's a lot of things that are transpiring or happening with other sports, and it's causing us to have questions and concerns about some things that may have happened in the past. Before we get to the Wentz topic, though, there was a story that dropped out, Q, today, and it was talking about how Zach Ertz is extremely frustrated with the lack of him being dealt. What do you think about this? This is going on. This is so popular. We always talk about this, but to me, it's just getting worse. And I just think that it's leaving a bad taste in his mouth, the fans' mouth. What is Howie doing when it comes to this?
Well, it's tough. It's the situation. The way I look at it, and it's frustrating, is that a situation like this, Howie's looking at it for what's best for the organization, what's best for himself, what's best for the program, not necessarily what's best for your star player that's given everything he's given for this team to win and be successful over the years. And so to me, as a former player, to me as a former athlete, that's frustrating. It's kind of the ultimate disrespect. I mean, the guy, you talking about a guy that goes out there and puts his life on the line every week for you. A guy that went out there and helped win a championship, a guy that was an integral part of the success of this organization for many years. And, it's just frustrating. On the one hand, you do understand because a business is a business, but at the same time, it never ceases to amaze me how quickly things can change in the minds of the people in control, and how quickly they can go from being someone that really supports you and really wants the best for you to someone that looks at you as a stock option, a commodity. And so, I'm sure Zach is he's like devastated, and I'm sure he's frustrated with the situation, as would a lot of people be.
Yeah.
But, if I would say one thing to him, I would say, this ain't the end, man. It's a chance for you to go over somewhere else and show that they made a mistake, show that the team made the wrong decision. But
that's the only way that you can face it. And I'm with you in that. Now, you've made player friendly deals throughout the Super Bowl time with Alshon Jeffrey, with Jason Peters, with Jason Kelsey, on and on and on down the line. We gave team friendly deals and player friendly deals and contracts. And in this situation, I don't necessarily know if it's because of something that Zach has done or what have you. You're holding him to the letter of the law in his contract. Here's the thing. Even if you're saying, okay, we have to do what's best for the team, and you're trying to turn over that new leaf because that hadn't been the best, it hadn't been represented the best at all times, because sometimes we are stuck with older players. We have been stuck with older players, and we weren't doing what was best for the team. We were doing what was best for the player. Now, since you're changing your mentality concerning this, now let's look at it from the perspective that you are claiming, that you're saying that you're trying to look at it from a business perspective. Zach Ertz isn't the same Zach Ertz from 2017 and 2018. It's just not 2016, 2017. It's just not the same market. Just like the real estate market is booming right now. Zach Ertz's house is not booming right now. It's not many people that's looking to buy the house. It isn't. So
Yeah.
at some point, you have to look at what the market is dictating to you, what's important. And if the market is saying somebody's willing to give up a 7th-round pick, a 6th-round pick, take it and keep it moving, rather than trying to get a 3rd or 4th or a player from him for him when the market is not dictating that. So you're not only hurting the team by being greedy, but you're hurting a relationship that can go far and beyond the game of football, because a lot of fans wonder why some of your best athletes don't come back to the city and sign autographs at the stadium or do appearances and things of that nature. Some people feel like they got boo-booed on here by the organization, therefore they will never come back here. All of these things happen because of situations like Zach Ertz. We want Zach Ertz to come back. We want him to do a wave, a fan bow, and all those things. Zach Ertz in the building, ladies and gentlemen, at halftime and raise his hand up and everyone claps. We want that. But at this rate, you won't see Zach Ertz in this city again because of things like this. And I don't want that to be so.
That's frustrating. And then a lot of times too, and what fans may or may not know, a lot of times what GMs may do is they'll wait until training camp, and a lot of times there's injuries that happen, and a team might end up becoming desperate and trade whatever for Zach if let's say they injure a tight end and they need to get someone in there quickly. So I have a suspicion that this is what's going on, but for the player, for a person like Zach, that makes things way tougher for him to come into a new team, a new organization, right in the middle of training camp and try to learn on the fly. And it's a bad deal all around. And I really feel for the guy.
Yeah, usually your veterans that you love and you respect, if there's any uncertainty, you try to let them go as soon as possible so they have a fighting chance.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's get to our first topic, Q. We're going to get to our first topic. We're going to get off the Zach Ertz bandwagon train right now. We're going to get to something that we've seen over the last couple of days, and with Ben Simmons. We've seen a meltdown of all meltdowns. There's no way. And I look at this and I think to myself, and I know we're football guys as far as playing. I love basketball through and through. It's my favorite sport. People don't know that. It still is to this day my favorite sport. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at it, and you kind of see the parallel between this next question. And we'll read that question. There's been some comparisons between Ben Simmons' regression and Carson Wentz. I'm not sure it's the same, but maybe there's something there that you guys see. It also opens the door to a broader discussion about pro athletes grappling with mental health, having to perform in the fishbowl environment that's a big sports passionate city like Philly is. Markelle Fultz went through his notable struggles just a short time, then seemed to turn it around in Orlando. Philly's outfielder Adam Hazley left the team earlier this year to go home for personal reason, and it was reported that he was having trouble dealing with pressure and social media criticism. Brian Dawkins has become a big advocate for mental health awareness, talking about suicidal thoughts early in his career. You guys can take. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of directions this can go, right? So there's a comparison between Ben and there's a comparison between Wentz. I had the last word last time, so I'm gonna let you get the first word.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not an easy thing, right? It's not an easy thing to be the face of a franchise, in which Carson was. It's not an easy thing to be a basketball player in the city of Philly. And I think the two things that make it more difficult for a basketball player or a baseball player or a guy like Carson is, number one, they're easily more recognizable than the other players, right? Especially basketball, and they don't have helmets on. A quarterback is the face of the franchise, so you're going to see a lot more of him. You're going to see his face plastered everywhere. So it's a little bit more difficult for the quarterback in terms of football. So you're dealing with a guy that, Ben Simmons, for instance, that, in this instant he walks anywhere in the city, everyone's going to know his face. Everyone's going to know his just by his height alone, they're going to know, okay, that guy plays basketball. Then you look at him, okay, that's Ben Simmons. And so in a city, especially a city like Philly, where you got you have fans that are avid fans that love the game, that understand the game, and that are not afraid to tell you when they don't enjoy the way you're playing. It can be difficult. And I think the mental health issue is a real issue. It's a real thing. And I think that a lot of people don't understand how difficult it really is to deal with the pressure of being a professional athlete. And a lot of people might say, oh, he's got tons of money and he's this and he should be happy. It's not like a guy wants to go out there and just think up the joint. You know, it's not like a guy wants to go out there and just play terrible, especially when he knows all the pressures on him. So, you know, I'm not saying that, I'm not making any excuses, but the mental health issue is a real thing. And a lot of people deal with it in many different ways. The way I dealt with it was, you know, one of the best things that Andy Reid taught us was turn the radio off. Don't read the newspapers. And I still, to this day, I have a box my wife shares. She used to collect all the my newspaper articles. I still have a box full of all these articles about me, and I'm sure there's good stuff. I'm sure there's bad stuff in it, but I never read any of it, and I don't know if I ever will. But I have all that stuff, and I really took that to heart, and I really think that the people that are able to just block all that out, not even listen to the radio, not read any of that stuff, I think they have a far better chance of succeeding. And then my last point is it's much more difficult in today's world than when I was playing, because social media has created a area where the fans can get to you like that. And they can talk about you like that. And so that is probably the most difficult part to deal with, is the social media aspect. And, you know, it's tough, man. It's a tough thing.
Yeah, it's a real deal. And it's agreed. All those points are valid. The comparison portion of it, right? So when you think of Carson Wentz, you think of someone that had a very, just like Ben Simmons, both of them had a lot of potential, and both of them still have a lot of potential. There was some success early, but something transpired along the way that happened. For Carson, it was him getting hurt. And then Nick Foles winning the Super Bowl, and the city being divided, and hearing the chants here and there, and not being mentally strong enough to be able to handle that. So that's one aspect of it. Ben Simmons, I don't believe his issues has ever been that. I think Ben Simmons' issues is that he hasn't progressed and worked on elements of his game, or that's just something that he just can ever do. But I've seen Rajon Rondo, who's one of the worst shooters ever, become a better shooter, right? So I think that Ben Simmons has just been exposed rather than a traumatic event happening. Okay. I think that's the difference between Carson Wentz, his injury, Nick Foles coming in, winning the Super Bowl, and it's the highest thing that you can do in our sport, and him trying to live up to that with a divided city, and Foles being there, and half the locker room is divided, half the coaching staff is divided. That's a different dynamic that begin to eat away at him, but you still seeing glimpses of his talent at times, just not consistent anymore, and dealing with that, right? So that's a mental thing. Ben Simmons, for the first time, has been basically caught up to or exposed. I'll give you this, right? And in my lifetime, I don't know many college basketball players that have been projected number 1, number 2, or what have you, who couldn't will their team at least to the NCAA tournament. At least to the NCAA tournament, right? NCAA tournament. LSU, when Ben Simmons was the star player, did not make the NCAA tournament. That always rubbed me the wrong way, because usually a guy of that stature can will his team to victories at that level. We've seen Shabazz Napier, for crying out loud, will his team to a national championship, along with Kemba Walker, and It goes on. CJ McCollum beat Duke at Lehigh. Steph Curry lit the like when you get these guys that are special above and beyond, not just all-star players, but in NBA talented players. They usually dominate their league and dominate at least to the point where their team gets to the NCAA tournament. Michael Beasley, for crying out loud, willed Kansas State to the NCAA tournament. Ben Simmons doesn't do that. And therefore, this is a long just and him being exposed. And now there's another story that came out and said today that someone close to the team texted Stephen A. Smith during his broadcast and said that Ben Simmons doesn't work, he doesn't listen, and he only keeps people around him, his family, that coddle him and they baby him. And that's a recipe for disaster. And here's my final point with that. We live in a different age, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Let me tell you why it's a bad thing first. Well, no, I'm gonna say why it's a good thing. It's a good thing because we can call out people that are horrendous when it comes to bullying people, for people being racist or being sexist or being whatever. Homophobic, whatever it may be, we can call those people out because those are justifiable reasons to say, you know what, stop it, quit it, don't do that. And that's not productive and healthy for a human being. But on the flip side, on that side, it protects people. But on the flip side, you can't even joke on people without them being offended anymore. Yeah. You can't come to school with a messed up outfit and people say, man, you look like a bag lady, or you look like Michelin Man, like the back of the rose in your neck look like the Michelin Man, or whatever it may be. Like, people would case you up or talk about you, and it prepares you for life. As much as you hate it as a parent, and as much as you think it's bullying and all those things, the player never experiences that anymore. So now you have these guys that are being babied by mom that's protecting them, putting them with people that's going to tell them the thing that sounds nice and never really coaches them hard. The coach will get fired if he curses at a player now. That's the way we live. That's the area that we live in. So now you have a bunch of crybaby older people that have never experienced the pressure, and then you couple that with being an old school city that remembers all of that, in Philadelphia, and being rough and can be rude but passionate at the same time. So when you add that formula together, it does not marry and it does not mix. And the other thing about Philadelphia, if you are scared and you don't bring your hard hat every day, and you are timid at all, and they don't respect the way you work, you will not make it in this city. So when you add all of those things, this has been a recipe for disaster since the day we drafted Ben Simmons.
Damn.
So now that's just me and my 100-foot view. But when you compare the two of Carson Wentz and Ben Simmons, there's no comparison of the two. To me, I think that Carson was on the right trajectory. He got hurt. Some stuff happened. He wasn't able to win the city back over. That happens sometimes. He may be able to go and thrive somewhere else. Ben Simmons, unless he totally recreates himself, breaks himself down, humbles himself, transforms the way he thinks. I've never, and I won't say never, but usually guys that are afraid at that point, in that moment, to go up for a dunk, because you're afraid to go to the line and things of that nature, you're afraid to shoot, you're afraid to, like, that will never cut it in the city of Philadelphia.
Yep.
And guess what would have helped you at some point? Somebody telling you when you're in high school, man, you suck. You can't shoot. Shoot them. Like, I want you to shoot. We're going to win if you shoot. Somebody just constantly on you. You get used to hearing it. You get used to it. Therefore, it don't affect you the way that it's affecting these guys.
You're right.
So that's my 2 cents about it.
That's 100, right? And again, you hit the nail on the head. You got to try. I'm sitting there watching the game too. I'm like, he don't even, it's like he just gave up. And that's not something you want to see your star player doing. You want him taking shots, even if you miss, like, just
Dude,
Just try.
Giannis misses a bunch. He misses most of the time, like when it comes to free throws and things of that nature. He knows that he's not going to shoot a jump shot, but he still attacks the lane. And that's all you can ask for. At the end of the day, we're going to go leave the game saying, you know what? Giannis cannot shoot a lick. But I guess what? One thing that you would never say about him is that he quit.
Yes. That's it right there.
You will never say that about him. You're going to say he attacks, he's a warrior, he can't shoot, but he going to give you everything you got.
That's it.
And you can't say the same about Ben Simmons right now. And it's very, very harsh to see there are people that are defending saying, oh, he's 24 years old. Listen, 24 years old is grown. And you know, we had to deal with that. We had to deal with that, and like you had to deal with that all growing up. When you from some people get it, some people don't. Some people look at Jason, you're living in the old school. We shouldn't talk to our kids like that. We shouldn't bully people, whatever you want to say. The goal for a parent should be a couple things. Mine, one is make sure my kids know God and that they're good after they leave this earth. And the second thing is that they are responsible adults that don't need me to be around.
Yes.
like that's what I want. Like I want them to be good people and all those things, but I want them to be love God and be responsible enough to adults that can stand on their own 2 feet without me being around and helping, assisting. And I can say that we're not doing a great job as a culture with that.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm
hard on my kids, especially ones that play sports, man.
You got to try.
I'll heckle you myself.
Boo! At the Clearview game, Trey, boo! You suck.
I'm putting you up for adoption.
Oh, there was this video on YouTube. It was like, boo, he sucks. Mom, you saying that about your own son? Yeah, he should hit his free throws.
That's real. Shoot.
Real talk, man. Real talk. Oh, man.
All right. So let's get into some of these questions. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. First one for you. All right. This is from Aaron P. He said, Jason, you mentioned on the last show, how Wentz he's good at the scramble drill, right? He's good at throwing on the run.
Mm-hmm.
Adam and Jeff have mentioned that before, that Wentz is significantly better when he's out of the pocket. Why was there such a lack of plays called by Doug to get Wentz out of the pocket and have him do what he does best?
The short answer to that, Q, is sometimes we don't know. But let me explain a couple things to you about rolling out, because everyone thinks that rolling out is the answer when you're getting 50 sacks. It's not always the answer, because rolling out presents a few things. One, you have to know what coverage it is if you're going to be rolling out consistently, right? If a team throws a cover 2 on you, do you have that play up? Do you have a cover 3 play? Whatever it is. So you gotta be comfortable with the coverage that's coming up. 2, you have to be comfortable with cutting off half of the field. So when you cut off half the field, you got to have winners at number 1. Your number 1 option has to be open, because you only have 2 options on this side. So 1 and 2 have to win. And the Eagles hadn't had great receiver play at times where 1 and 2 win. So that could be part of the reason. The other thing too, Carson Wentz has struggled with coverage recognition. So is he going to be able to read that coverage when you get it out there? And then I would say that the last thing is a good play. Like when you're rolling out, it's usually a for sure type of, we can get this play. We used to always run, and we would run a play so much that people just started scheming us up. We used to run Q8 option all the time, or sprint left option, or whatever it is. It's the play where I go up a little bit and head to the flat. And whenever it's man, we would check to that play, and it would work for all the time. But after a while, it wouldn't work. But that was our go-to bread and butter play. And so it can be a combination of any of those things. Yes, Carson can go out and he can be accurate in a scramble type of thing, but will his receivers win the only 1 and 2 options to that side? Will I get the coverage that I want every time? And then is it a guaranteed, quick hitting for sure play? So those are some things. Those are could be some reasons, but ultimately we don't know. We do know that we didn't have consistent receiver play that was winning every single time outside.
Yeah. And it seemed too like we had talked about this before, but I really think that the receiving core, at least the play calling, we did too much crack sets, too much double bunch sets. Like we never really like spread the entire field out. Like everything was like tight in. And to me, the way I see it, when you have a quarterback that does have trouble reading coverages, and you're bringing the receivers in where there's a lot more bodies closer to the line of scrimmage, it makes everything more difficult. And a lot of times too, what we need to explain too is like there's a difference, like you said, there's a difference between rollout play that's coverage, like that's a called play, and what Carson was doing. Like a lot of it was he was freestyling, play would break down, and people, I mean, it's the NFL. They figure it out eventually. They catch up to it, right? So he's got to step his game up to the next level too, right? So you can only do that for about a year. Play breaks down, and you start running and keeping your eyes downfield, and then finding an open man. Well, eventually, defensive coordinator is going to be like, okay, well, we'll keep him in the pocket, and then make him beat us that way. Or if he does get out, we're going to train our DBs to, once he gets out the pocket, you're locked on man to man. You're coming underneath. You're staying with him. You're going to make him overthrow. Like there's ways to figure it out. So each year, and I really feel like this, and you can probably attest to this too, is like each year you might have success, but you better be working on something to make it better the next year, because they're going to figure you out. Just like you said, you had the one play where you guys used to run it all the time.
All the time, yeah.
And then all of a sudden you can't run it anymore because
it dries up.
Exactly. And so you got to continue to learn and continue to get better.
Yeah, you got to have an option off an option.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. All right. So the next question, number 2, how do you feel about the latest trend of having certain safeties move inside to the box as an extra linebacker, or basically have a complete position change and move them to linebacker? Do you think it's something you or Michael Lewis could have done or would have been happy to do if it was asked by Jim Johnson? Now, there is a big shift with the Rams, and a lot of teams are playing more dime and just taking a linebacker off the field completely and putting that safety down in the box. So I guess that's what they're talking about.
Yeah. And with Jim, when Jim and Sean McDermott and Spagnuolo, in a lot of ways, we did the same thing. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was package driven. It wasn't, you wouldn't go into a game and that was your base package as a dime backer, but we had many different packages. We actually, one year against the Giants, we had a package where it was 7 DBs. It was six DB. It was something it was something crazy. Mm-hmm. And the game really dictates this. You're seeing now, I mean, there's no true tight ends anymore. It's, you got George Kittles, you got guys, you
got Travis, you got Waller.
Waller.
Yeah.
Like, you got big, tall, strong tight ends that can run 4.40s and run routes like receivers. And so, you've got to be a fool if you're going to play. You're going to sit there and play a regular 4-3 with a linebacker trying to cover a guy like that. And so, the offenses kind of dictate what that is going to. And I personally enjoy anything where there's more DBs on the field and more dynamic players in those positions. I'm all for it, man, because, especially me, being a little guy, I always root for the little guys. So,
yeah,
I enjoy the game. I enjoy watching it. And it's a good counter to these teams that have these dynamic tight ends like that.
So the teams that want to play these defenses are against you want to play these types of defenses against teams that are not committed to the run game, right? Mm-hmm. Because the run game would totally bring that linebacker back into the game because they have a size advantage. If you have good tight ends that can run but can block as well, and they're committed to the run game. And it's only a few teams in the NFL that's committed to it. The Ravens are committed to it. The Titans are committed to it. Yeah. Teams like that, even the Colts last year, they were committed to it. There's a few teams but it's only a handful. Most teams want to throw the ball around the yard, and these defenses are adapting to the NFL that want to see the quarterback throw the ball 40 times a game. Now you put an extra skill position in position to make a play, and you're saying, you know what, even if you get 3 or 4 yards in a run game, you're not going to have the patience to continue to do it. Yeah. And everyone's finding out that that's true. And because the run game, it takes away possessions, it short makes the game shorter, and offensive coordinators want to score points. Because at the end of the day, if they don't have that job, they can at least say, we scored 28 points a game. And running the ball only get you 20 points a game or 14 points a game.
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Isn't that crazy how that works?
It's crazy, yeah. And eventually, the teams that figure it out how to do both when they want to are the teams that are successful. And, when Kansas City won, they had a good run game as well. And last year they didn't run the ball as well.
They didn't try. They wouldn't try. Yeah. And once you get down, sometimes you can't run it. But when the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl, they didn't have a great run game, but they had a good enough running game to keep people honest.
Yes.
And that's when you're an explosive passing team, that's what you need. You need a good enough run game to keep people honest.
Yes.
That's it. You just can't abandon it, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I like that. That was a good question. All right. Let me see where we're at.
Number 3.
Okay. So how do you guys feel about so many kids now playing football at such a young age? I played when I was 6 up until 20 years old. Here in Texas, they have tackle football starting at 4. Do you think having kids play at such a young age is unnecessary and just have them wait until older? Do you think there's a huge advantage from playing that young compared to starting in middle school?
Oh, man. So if I'm going to start this question off, Q, I'm going to say, remember, I didn't play football until I was a sophomore in high school. So I definitely don't believe that you need to play football at 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. I just don't. That's just my personal preference. I don't see many advantages to it, except for you get them used to contact, which is going to take away the fear and is going to prepare people to be hit. Like, you learn little elements of how to shake tackles or lower your shoulder or, get used to contact. Like at some point, it took me a lot longer for that part of my brain to get seared to the point where I was not as cautious anymore. I was cautious in high school, and probably like my sophomore year in college is when I didn't care anymore about running full speed into someone. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it takes a little bit longer, but I'm only imagining when you're playing football at 4 or 7, that happens a lot quicker. Yeah. And so that's the only advantage I can see. But I think that, like we talked about last show, that kids should be more they should be in more sports. They shouldn't just be in one sport training and worrying about football that young, when you can put them in baseball and learn hand and eye coordination there. And you can put them in wrestling and learn toughness and grit, or learn how to submit people, whatever it may be. You put them in so many different things, and by the time they get to middle school and high school, they pick the one that they want, or they continue to do all of them. And now they have a full accompaniment of skills that can help them in some area, some sport. And usually the kids that are good at baseball and basketball and football, or good at, most of those kids are going to be good at all sports, right? So, and then you begin to kind of, direct them down the path. But I don't think that there's any advantage to playing that young. I really don't. I think that's more so for dads and moms that want their kid to go to the pros, or want to live their dreams through their kids, or even just want them to, not just that, because I don't want to make it seem bad, because it's not just for those people. It's for the parents that may want their kids to be more disciplined, learn about team, different things of that nature too. So, but as far as any advantages when it comes to skill set, I don't believe so. What about you?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a story. Oh, kind of a quick story. So My younger son, he plays. My oldest son Trey doesn't. He doesn't play. My younger son plays tackle, and he started. I can't even remember. He was probably 7 or 8 when he started. He's now 12, so he's been playing for a few years. He wanted to play like years ago, back in 2013, 2014. He wanted to play, and my rules. I didn't start playing tackle till I was in the 6th grade. So I figured, okay, I'm in the 6th grade. He could wait till the 6th grade. So I didn't want him to play. He kept begging me. He's the kind of kid, like when he was young, when he was a baby, 4 years old, he had like shoulder pads in him, and he's like running around the house. So he's always loved the game. And so I didn't want him to play too early, but he was a kid that he kept begging. He wanted to play. He wanted to play. And I said, okay, son. I was like, I'll sign you up. You're gonna play, but you cannot quit. Because I knew that the first hit that he gets, he's gonna be like, I don't know if I like this no more. This ain't what I thought it was. Right. So we go out for the first practice, and I was just kind of watching, and he got the hit, and then after the practice, like, so how'd it go? And he's like, I don't know if I want to play. And I'm like, what do we say? I said, if you want to play, you're going to continue, and you're not going to quit. You can quit after the season, never play again, but you're going to start the season. You're going to finish the season. You're going to start something, you finish it. And so he started to learn the commitment part of it, right? And so, he come out every year. Now it's like he's coming home asking me to take him out and work him out and stuff. And so it's something. So for me personally, I think it kind of depends on the kid. I think I didn't force him to do it. He begged me and me and my wife to play. He wanted that. I disagree with the parents, and I agree with you, the parents that are forcing their kids to play, that you can tell that they don't really want to be out there. That's where kids get hurt, when they don't want to be out there. They don't want to listen. They don't want to learn. They don't want to have the contact. That's when it becomes a problem. There's a lot of good things that you can learn. There's a lot of bad things you can learn. And it all depends on the coaching staff. It all depends on the coaches and what they're really trying to get out of it. I've coached at the youth level. I've seen coaches that they cheat, bring older kids down to play. They run the score up on kids. They're making kids hit every single night for no reason. I didn't get into coaching kids for that. I got into it to teach the game the right way, to teach the kids how to have fun, to compete, to be part of a team and have commitment. And so I think a lot of it depends on the situation you're in, and really what you as a parent, your child, and your coaches want out of it. And physically, at 4 years old, I know it's going to sound crazy, but at 4 years old, 6 years old, they're not moving fast enough or big enough to really like
hurt somebody.
Damage. Like I see more kids get hurt on the soccer field than I did at a tackle game. And the only other thing I would say is that can help, and you can get this in many other sports, but I do think that playing the game of football builds up a lot of bone density. Just the natural act of falling. Now, again, you can get this in other sports. You can get this in karate. You can get this in baseball. You can get it in any other sports. As long as the kid's playing any sport, you can get this. But you can build a lot of bone density just simply falling on the ground and getting up. Right? Like a lot of kids when they get older that switch from not playing any sports to trying to play sports. That's why you get a lot of injuries, because they haven't really fallen a whole lot. They haven't really, ran on a field with heavy pads and stuff on their bodies. And so that's the one thing I will say is you get the teamwork. If it's done well, the kids learn to be a part of a team. They learn to compete. They learn the commitment. You do build a little bit of the bone density and the ability to, if you fall, get back up, right? And so those things are good. If you can get those things from any other sport, or you can get those out of your child in any other way, I'm all for it. But for me, the difference was my son just wanted to play the game. He just loved the game. And so
you can't deny him, because you never want to be that parent that's like, I could have been in the NFL. My dad didn't let me play. Like, you don't want that, right? So you had to let him do it, and I respect that. Good job,
like Uncle Rico, right?
Yeah,
my dad would have put me in.
Only if he'd have put me in. All right, let's go to this next question, Q. Ken C. what's something that a general fan doesn't hear or see that goes on with the NFL team that only players know? Or what is a commonly known thing that NFL players know that the general fan does not know?
Oh, there's a lot of stuff there. It's a big, heavy question, but I will say probably the biggest thing that people don't know, and to me, the biggest thing that people don't know is that how much work really goes into playing the game. It's funny when I was playing, and I'm sure you said it too at times. You talking to your family or your kids or your wife or whatever. You're like, all right, I got to go to work. And people, I remember the first time I said I got to go to work, and someone's like, what you mean work? No, it's not. You don't go and just be on the field for like 2 hours and that's it. You go. It's work. You show up at. We had signal callers meeting, 7:30 in the morning. So you show up at. You got to get there on time or else you're going to get fined. So we get there early, 7:30, 7:45. That's your first meeting. And then you have another meeting after that. And then you have another meeting after that. So you got signal callers and you got defensive meeting, you got special teams meeting. Then you got your individual meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a quick lunch. Then you have your practice. And then after practice, you have another meeting. And then so now before you know it, you're going from 7:30 to about 4:35?
4:30.
And then, and then usually, the I don't know what the offense did, but the defense, we used to have a meeting together. So that's another 30 minutes. And then, a lot of times guys have to do training room and get their bodies right, get their bodies back healthy. So they're there till 6. So really you're there from 7:30. You're really getting up at 6:30, but you're there from 7:30 to about 6:00 at night.
Yeah.
All through the week. And it's a lot. It takes a lot to get from Sunday to Sunday during the season. And it is a job. It is a job. And I think that's probably the one thing that people don't think is real. It's a full-time job.
It is 100%. Yeah. The other thing that I don't think people realize, because everyone always talking about like locker room and the locker room and the locker room and the locker room. You're never in a locker room.
For real. For real.
Like, you're really never in the locker room, right? The most time you spend in the locker room is at training camp, because at training camp you don't want to go back to the dorm room because it takes you 20 minutes to get there and 20 minutes to get back. You don't lose 40 minutes going in transit. So you may sleep in your locker room during training camp, or you may set up a little basketball goal or something during training camp and you're in the locker room after that. But during the week, you probably in the locker room probably 30 minutes a day, maybe, if that. And most people don't want to be in the locker room because the media is there. Yeah. So the time that you would be in the locker room, the media is trying to cover a story, so you can't relax anyway. So guys are hid all in closets and stuff around the facility trying to hide from the media, right? So so you never really in the locker room until the end of the night. Somebody may be playing pool or something like that at the end of the day, but by that time everyone wants to go home. So the locker room is usually the time that what I think people mean, Q, is maybe the time that you guys just spend with each other rather than the actual place, because you do spend time with each other in meeting rooms, because there's funny stuff that happens. And that's the thing that about the NFL that no one knows. It's 40 or 53 comedians. That's what it is. It's 53 comedians on the team. And everyone lives for the next joke. And so whether it's a coach or saying something that's a little questionable and everybody's like, what? or somebody came in with a messed up green haircut or something, like the Green Goblin, like people are talking about that, or whatever it is. Like, once you get cut, man, make it purple this week, whatever it may be. There's always going to be some jokes. So one, you're not in the locker room that much, and two, you're around a bunch of comedians.
53 comedians.
It's funny. And you got them from everywhere. And that's the thing about the NFL that you love. You got them from everywhere. You got them from everywhere. It's some funny stuff. Like, if you want to know funny, Q, go into the offensive lineman's meeting room. Now that right there is funny, because the offensive meeting room sounds like this. Dude, they fart about 3 times a minute in the meeting room, right? And like if you start laughing in the meeting room, Juan or the offensive line coach gets mad at you, because I had to go in the offensive line meeting room in order to help with protections, like when it comes to like when I'm chipping or knowing when you're hot and stuff like that. So on certain plays, I had to go in the offensive line meeting room. And I went in there, I'm like, man, y'all stink, right? Just a bunch of cattle, right? Just smell. And and every 20 seconds, and I'm like snickering, and Juan's like, hey, Avant, if you're gonna be in that meeting room, this is what they do. They fart. Like, but you can't make it a scene. All right, get over it.
I
And
can
I'm
hear
like,
Juan
dude,
voice.
yeah. He getting mad at me because I'm laughing at them farting the entire time. I'm like, dude, y'all got no shame.
I walked by the O-line room one time and never again. It was like it smelled like a swamp. I was like, man, what's going on here? Boy's nasty.
Boy's nasty.
And this is small. They had the small room too.
Yeah, they had a little bitty room. So you got all these big dudes in this little tight room. I don't know who came up with that. And they have like the most offensive linemen and D linemen most of the time have the most people on the team as far as position wise, because it's 5 purpose. If offensive linemen, you need 5 on the field, so we usually carry 9 or 10 offensive linemen, and then the defensive line usually carries like 9 or 10 as well. So usually would think those guys would get the biggest room. No, they had like the smallest room. Maybe they were irritated or something. I don't know. All right, let's get to the next question. This question is for you, Q. Quintin, what player do you not look forward to playing against the most, and why?
Oh man,
what player didn't you like to?
So I had
play against.
I looked at this question and I had a lot that I didn't enjoy playing with. So I'll break them down by position. Running back, number 1, Adrian Peterson.
Why?
Because that dude was a beast. Talk about, he was strong, he's fast. He could run you over, he could run by you. You don't know, he could stiff arm you to the earth. Like, the dude was just a freaking nature. And I never wanted to be one-on-one with him. I got one time I tackled him, and I feel like I got lucky more than anything. The dude was, I'll never forget, I saw him, there was one time we were playing, and it was Stu Bradley. And you remember Stu was like 260. And we were stringing them out. We're stringing out Adrian Peterson to the sideline, and Stu was coming inside out full speed. And Adrian Peterson, I'll never forget this. He could have ran out of bounds. No one said anything. We had him dead to rights, right? He was done. This man decided, you know what? I know I'm about to get tackled to push out of bounds, but I'm gonna make somebody feel it. And he put a foot in the ground and he accelerated faster than anything I've seen in my life and ran full speed in the Stu head first. And it was the loudest hit I think I've ever heard in my life. And I was like, okay. After that, it's like one of them, DBs, you run at full speed, but you kind of slow up a little bit.
You hoping somebody else
Go ahead, Stu. I don't want no part of that. Oh, man. So, Adrian Peterson, Brandon Jacobs, y'all know you remember him from the Giants.
But Doc used to have his number, though.
Yeah, Doc did.
Yeah, he said Doc did.
Doc used to scoop him.
Yeah.
Steve Smith, I hated playing against him. Plaxico Burress, tight end Jason Witten, I hated playing against him, and Vernon Davis.
Yeah, Vernon was fast.
So, and then the last two quarterback-wise, Drew Brees, I hated playing against him, but the most difficult quarterback for me as a player personally was Tony Romo. And I know people are going to think that I'm crazy. That dude, and I think a lot of people were starting, because I would say this years ago. And
Tony can play, man.
He's not that good. And then they started listening to him talk on the TV and how he would break down stuff. And I was telling him, I was like, I told you, that dude is the smartest quarterback next to Tom Brady that I've ever seen. And I personally think he was he was smarter as a player than Peyton Manning, because the way he would just diagnose everything. Peyton Manning, a lot of people don't know this. Peyton Manning, when he only does 2x2 sets, because he knows that If you do anything different, he can dictate what everything is based off of 2x2 sets. Tony Romo, like he could do it 3x1, 2x1, and he was so intelligent. He knew everything that you were doing every time, and he was a guy that I just hated playing against because he was just so smart and he could make all the throws. And people always thought he wasn't very good, and he was very good.
That was funny to me. And as a receiver looking at it, I'm like, dude, I don't know what people are talking about. Romo can play.
Yeah.
Like Romo could play.
Yeah.
And but he didn't win games, and a lot of it wasn't just Tony. It was, and the quarterback gets the blame, but a lot of it wasn't just, then they just had they've had they've had a losing mentality for 20 plus years, you know what I mean? So, and that has a lot to do with it. So, but that's funny.
What about you though? I want to know, like, who, off the top, if you can think, who's some players that you hate to play against, or you had the most difficulty playing against?
It's kind of hard as a receiver. The reason it's hard as a receiver because when I was young, I didn't feel like anybody could cover me when I was young. When I got older, players started to feel like they can cover me, and they could because I got old like quick. And so like guys like Chris Harris could guard me and I used to get mad because I never had people be able to stay in front of me.
And when I got Denver, right?
In Denver, yeah, but okay. He was old. He was young in his first or second year. Yeah. And here I am in year 9, and I'm playing against him and he's strapping me. And I'm like, dude, this is embarrassing, And I've never experienced it before. So it's kind of hard to see. And now I feel like now I know what, like guys like Sean Springs, when you play against those guys and you beating them up, how they feel like, dude, he was thinking, when I was playing them as a young player, like, dude, I would be killing you if I was playing 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So you got that dynamic going, but corners never really scared me or never really that you hated playing against. Some safeties now, like Sean Taylor for me, I knew if Don was late that I was going to go to sleep. I knew it. And there was a good chance that Don would be late. So I had to come up with a game plan for him to be late so I could not go to sleep. Right. And there are certain guys and I'm proud of the time that I played in. So guys that you hated playing against, but you loved playing against me. It's not like you hated playing against them or you didn't like playing against me. You actually loved it because it was a challenge, but you knew that you had to be on your A game.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the safety position. It was never the corner position. Because I didn't feel like it was that many people could cover me in the slot. The hardest time I ever had at receiver was in practice versus Sante because he was so smart and he can run with me. He couldn't run with everybody in the game, but he can run with me. Mm-hmm. And but in our time, you had Palomalu who was kamikaze. You had Bob Sanders, who I had to meet twice a year in college. That was kamikaze. You had Rodney Harrison, who was kamikaze. You had Lawyer Malloy, who was kamikaze. Like you had a bunch of dudes that didn't care about their bodies. So as a receiver, especially playing the slot, like you had to be measured and make sure that you take like the proper steps, right? So if I knew Don was late, I knew I couldn't wait on it. And I was just like sprint back to the ball, not just so I can get the catch, but also too, to keep myself out of harm's way. If a person was running at me full speed like this, I will always come back toward it. You know what I mean? Because those guys were looking for blood. It wasn't Ed Reed out there. We played against Ed Reed. Ed Reed wanted to get a pick. He didn't want to knock you out. He wanted to get a pick and score a touchdown. He had the mental. Those guys that did not care about the football. They're out there to make a reputation. And that was nervous. That was nervous time. Especially if your quarterback saw it late. If he's on time, you're good. Because, but if he saw it late, that thing gonna be coming hard, and the harder it comes, the more inaccurate it could be. And if it's inaccurate and that dude is full speed and he get a beat on it,
it's a wrap. Night.
Lights off. Yeah, them because that was just the time that we played in. It was a lot of safeties that did that was known to smack you.
Yeah.
So.
Those good old days.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Where we at?
Oh, tough question.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, this is for Jason. Jason, this is I recall I recall you being one of the vocal leaders in the locker room when the Riley Cooper fiasco occurred, and wanted to ask you how the other players took to that. Did you get any slack for it, or anyone not willing to forgive?
Everyone in Philadelphia can remember the Riley Cooper situation. And it was very, very hard to hear. The reason it's hard because Riley's locker was right next to mine. I had Riley on one side and I had Deshaun on the other side. And when I saw the video and I saw what happened and what I heard, the first thing that enters your mind is anger and betrayal. And just like the air knocked out of you, just because this guy, at the time you mentoring, you're trying to help him become a better pro. And that was my job. A lot of times that I was not only a slot receiver, but I was like the leader of the receiver core group as far as, people knowing what they have to do, how to get open, so on and so forth. That was my job. And so it was very, very hard hearing those words. And now I'm put in this situation. And this is the toughest situation to be in, I think, because I think this country finds themselves in this situation all the time. Do I choose my race or do I choose my religion? Do I choose my race or do I choose my political views? Do I choose my family? Do I choose my race? Do I choose my beliefs? Do I choose this? Do I choose that? And it was hard because on one instance, forgiving is the option that nobody wants to hear or do, because for some reason in our culture, when these things occur, Black people have always been forced and expected to forgive in these moments, in these times. Oh, he didn't mean it. It was so many people that came up to me saying, oh, he didn't mean it. You guys should forgive him, just making it trivial, gaslighting, like it's no big deal, which it was a very big deal. And so it was a very, very tough situation for me. But being the person that I am, not trying to praise myself or anything, is that I always lead with my faith more so than my race, more so than any other thing. Because I believe that faith is not black or white. I know we have made, when I think of the term Christianity and you think of the term Christian, you automatically assume like a Republican white man in the South that still, believes in certain beliefs that are not okay with society now. But for me, that's a relationship and how my life changed. And I can only think of all the things that I'd done wrong when I was a kid, from selling drugs to being on the corners to running with gangs and all type of mischievous things. And if someone had a camera on me in my life, and especially in this time of cancel, I don't like to say that term, where people are trying to show your past, because trying to show your past to, to hinder your future. I would have been done a long time ago, if I viewed it from that perspective and that light. So I chose to do what I felt God would do, in that he don't hold our past against us. Because if we have a camera on us, what will we see on everybody? If it was you, that the same people that are crying out, crucify him, they had a camera on you, what would you be doing at 12 a.m. or when nobody's around, or when your kids are at school? And so that's the point and perspective I came from, and saying, you know what? He don't deserve it right now, but I didn't deserve it either. And that's the perspective I came from. Now, I look back at that perspective, and even as a strong believer, I still struggle with my position and my mindset that day. It will always be a struggle, not because I hate Riley. I actually love Riley, and I love God, but it's a struggle being a Black man, seeing that it happens so frequently in this country. And it's always swept under a rug, and it's always meant to be forgiven, and it's always tomorrow, freedom will come, tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. So in that moment, we could have made a statement with Riley, and we chose mercy. And sometimes that bothers me, not saying that I wanted Riley to receive the brunt of everything, but it was a lot bigger than Riley at that moment. And I don't know if we squandered an opportunity to help affect change for everyone in that moment for people of color. So that's what I think of today. And it's a very, very difficult situation. Like I said, though I love Riley, though I love and though I forgive him completely, but seeing it from a different perspective is it makes me think sometimes. Yeah. So
no, that was deep, man. And I wasn't with the team when this whole thing happened. And to me, the biggest, the craziest thing was, and I saw the fights with Kerry and and all that stuff on ESPN. But he ended up getting an extension. And
go ahead.
Yeah, and like that was the one thing that I understood because I understand the locker room and understand everything you said about forgiving and bringing in. I mean, that part of it I understand 100%. But the whole extension thing was just I couldn't wrap my mind around that one.
Yeah,
that it just wasn't the right time.
And that's and the thing about it is you begin to think that. And these are thoughts that are thought-provoking things that come to your mind. Is that, man, did I make the right decision, or did I just sell out a whole race of people in the name of being a good Christian at this moment in time? And then you begin to juggle that with your relationship with God and all those things, because did I encourage this man to get rewarded for something that was done that way? And I thought that was very bad taste with the Eagles, though I'm not mad at the man for getting a contract, and I still love him, still talk to him today. But it was a lot bigger than Riley, and it was a lot bigger than me, and it was a lot bigger than Michael Vick and D'Amico Ryans, those who were the leaders in that situation. It was the end of Chip Kelly at that moment in that time, because instead of him stepping up, he never conceded to the players at all during his time. It was always Chip Kelly's way.
Yeah.
And at this moment in time, he's automatically philanthropic at this moment now, right? he wants to give it over to Jason Avant and Michael Vick and never in his time did he want anybody else to have any control but him. But when it was convenient, and he didn't want to deal with it because he's a guy from New Hampshire that dealt with similar issues. He didn't feel like, that it was that big of a deal. And so he gave it over. So, and I felt like some days I feel like, man, maybe we squandered. And then the other times I look at it and say, you know what? Again, when I get to heaven, I don't want God to be looking at me saying, you know what? You held this against this person and you had an opportunity to show mercy and you didn't. I don't want that for myself either. So if I would do it over again, I probably would do the same thing, but it still would be as hard as it is today, knowing everything that has transpired in our country.
Yeah.
So that's a sobering thought.
Yeah. And I agree. You did the right thing, man.
Yeah, it's hard. It was the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt like it was the right thing, because it was the hardest thing to do. The easiest thing to do is for everyone to beat him up. Right. That was the easiest part. But the hardest part was he sat next to me at my locker. He sat next to me in my meeting. He sat next to me in a team meeting. The hardest thing for me to do during that time is everyone moved away from him. White, black, green, red. Is to get in team meeting and the whole row is gone and me to sit in my same spot right next to him. That was hard. Wow. And yes, guys wanted to beat him up. Yes, guys looked down on me for those things. And but it was a very, very hard time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's move on, Q. Let's move on. We got a few minutes.
Okay.
A few more questions. Can you compare Miles Sanders to the great Eagles running backs, and what makes him so good? Can he lead us to greatness?
You could probably answer this. You have a closer relationship.
Kind of intimate, yeah.
You know, so you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take it. So Miles is not great yet. Doesn't mean that he will not be great. Miles, he works extremely hard. He has explosive ability. When he's patient, he sees everything when he's patient. And the only thing that Miles struggled with last year, and it was a struggle because the quarterback was inaccurate, was catching. He missed a lot of balls last year. And for a running back, running backs don't catch the ball extremely well, but an inaccurate quarterback can really have a mental challenge for some running backs, just because if you don't know where it's going to be, receivers are used to not knowing where the ball is going to be. Yeah. And so, but it's for a running back, you catch a swing route, you catch an H route, you catch a flat route. It's not many angles that you're catching that for as a running back. And when those balls are all over the place, you're just not used to it. So he struggled in that area. But overall, I think that his vision is very good. I think that his work ethic is impeccable. And that's why I think that he can be very good, and good can turn into great. But when you think of great running backs, you're talking about Brian Westbrook, who the only thing that you can ever say about Brian Westbrook is that he was small. Yeah. He still to this day, and I love LaShawn McCoy, him and Shady, two of the great Eagles running backs. But Brian Westbrook, when you add what he can do to the return game and how mean he was as a little runner, and how you could not cover him, and you can literally line him up at receiver and run slants the whole game, and he will piece you up. Yeah. And we're talking about some good defenders too. Yeah. So he was just a nightmare matchup. And I only can imagine if he was in a different system or offense, if he was in the Darren Sproles role in not New Orleans, or you can only imagine the types of things that could have been happening with him. So I think Miles has a long time to get to a Shady or a Brian Westbrook's level, but I think that he can be with the right system and staying healthy. He hadn't been able to stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, those guys were able to, and that's what made them special. They can stay healthy, and that's the only thing that can hear them. But he's on the right path to becoming good.
And I worry, and I won't say I worry, but when you look at the system that Sirianni comes from, and Frank Wright, he's the head coach there, and I'm assuming he did a lot of the play calling, but a lot of the running game was in between the tackles. It was a lot of not a lot of outside run game, and so you kind of wonder if obviously with the injury history there, if he can hold up running in between the tackles like that. And so I certainly he was at Penn State, and we all know about their history of running backs and how they run the ball. So I certainly think that he can do He can do much more if he stays healthy. I'm excited to see the ways that they use him. Is it going to be more downhill run game, or are we going to do some zone run stuff, some RPO type stuff? I think he's better suited. Me personally, I'd like to see him running more downhill, kind of what they did in Indianapolis. I think he can do that fairly well.
That's a great observation, because the struggle with Miles is that when he doesn't trust it, he bounces because he's so fast in comparison to the defenders that are responsible for him. Yeah. So the times that Deuce had trouble and struggles with him is that when he would abandon it and break to the outside. And a system that's making you get downhill forces you to be on your path for a longer period of time, and then you can bounce out. But every big play does not happen. In this National Football League, it's International Football League, it's very, very hard to consistently make hay running outside. So getting him in a system that is going to force him to stay on track for as long as possible and then break it, unless you're as dynamic like Shady. Like, that's the thing that made Shady special, is that Shady would take the one-on-one every time, right? Yeah. So there's always a forced defender backside or contained defender backside. If he didn't like the play, he knew he was going to beat that guy. You know what I mean? And the guy would have great leverage, and he was designed to make that play. He was there to make that play. But 8 out of 10 times, Shady was going to beat him. Yep. So Shady was like, dude, I can run what you say on offense and make a few yards, but I can get 20 if I do it my way. He made a living by beating that dude with a better angle one-on-one backside.
I'm telling you, that's not a feeling. That's not a good feeling. You one-on-one with Shady.
It's not.
And you got a two-way go.
Can you imagine if Shady was like a low 4.4? It wouldn't be possible, because usually when guys can run that fast, they don't take the time to develop all those shakes and move stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? Usually when guys can't run as fast, they got all the wiggle.
Yeah, that's real.
So, all right, let's get to these last two questions. You wanna let's get one more.
Yeah, let's do one more. Where we at?
I'll get this one. How do NFL players feel about being coached or taught how to play by someone who didn't play the game or in the NFL? Do you guys and do players in general respect and respond better to coaches and personnel department, people who actually played the game? It's a tough question. We know the answer to this question, but we've never been able to have free speech when it comes to this question.
No. I don't think that I've been coached by anyone that's never played the game. I'm thinking at any level. I don't think I've ever been coached by anyone that's never played the game. That being said, I think it's, especially at the NFL level, I will say it's very difficult to be coached. I think it would be very difficult to be coached by someone that's never played the game, especially if they never even played the game at all. But I think it's hard enough that if they've never played the position. I've always been coached by secondary players, so they may not have been at the NFL level, but they played college and certainly in high school. And so I feel like it would be very difficult, and not necessarily from a perspective of me having respect for that person. I think more from the perspective of there's so many little minute things that you pick up from actually playing the game that you never really learn unless you play the game. Obviously, Bill Belichick, I don't believe he played beyond. I definitely don't think he played beyond high school, and I think he probably even before that was done. So there's exceptions to the rules. Tremendous coach, but me personally as a player, I would think I would much more enjoy someone that played the game, so they knew the little nuances of the game, stuff that I feel will make me get better, that I didn't think about as a player.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, I think that the further along the coach, so let's get this straight. Okay, because in this question is the question, or it implies that, you know, every person that made it to the NFL cannot be a coach because they may not be able to articulate what the things that they know.
Yes.
Or they could be a supremely talented player, but not the best technician. And therefore, guys can make it in the NFL with talent, with very average to below technique, or you can be a guy with minimum talent with great technique. And there's a combination of all these different mixtures that make it in the NFL.
Yeah.
So everyone's not going to be a coach. And some of your best players in history will make bad coaches.
Yes.
like yeah. So it just happens. I remember one time, and I wasn't offended by this at all. And it just made me laugh because of the way we view things, right? So I remember one year, Nelson Aguilar was really struggling, and he hit me up, and he was like, "Hey man, I know you play this position in this city, and I want to work with you." And I'm like, "Dude, here's my number. I can work with you. You got get open ability. I want to show you some things that can help you see the ball a little bit quicker, so on and so forth." Right. And I'm not lauding myself as this great, all-time great or anything. But the one thing I do know is that position and how to get open in that position, because I didn't get open with my talent. I was able to get open with my mind and subtleties of playing this game and learning a bunch of things. The next thing I see is like next weekend, he never gave me a call, was him going out, working out with Randy Moss. And in my mind, I wasn't mad or jealous. I just started laughing.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against Randy Moss. It's nothing against Randy Moss, because Randy Moss is an all-time great player, and I'm sure he learned a bunch. But Randy Moss has never had to put as much thought into this game as I have.
Yes.
He just hadn't. He is, because what Randy Moss was blessed out of the womb with, most people don't ever have.
Mm-mm.
So in Aguilar's mind, it was like, oh, I'm getting a chance to work with Randy Moss, and he's going to teach me these great things. It's like, I love Randy Moss, and I adore him as one of the all-time greats, if not, one of the, top two receivers that ever played this game.
Yeah.
I think that. But I do know that mentally, and the work that we had to put in order to get to where we got to, his results are way better than mine as far as on the field. Way better.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were starting with the same stuff, my results would be better because I had to do more with less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, so when you begin to think about those things, like, so now to segue that back to the question, you respect the player, you respect the coach that has had the experience, high school, college, or pros, and that has a good way of communicating.
Yeah.
I think the closer you get to the NFL and they're great communicators, you begin to find like the small nuggets that's outside like the normal coaches, right? So say for a position or receiver position, like they tell you to run, straight, and then you make it this way, or you run straight and you go that way. And you get that coach that says, listen, he's outside leverage. He already shaded out there. He's letting you know already that he don't want you to go outside. So if you take one step outside, he's going to take 2 steps. So therefore, you don't even have to worry about a release. If you take 1 step outside, he'll give you a clean path, right? Just like little small things. Usually guys that play the game can be able to give you some little nugget, and it makes sense to you on a different level. And they know what's inside of your ability. That's my biggest problem with coaches that hadn't played the game at a high level, like a college level or pro level. They don't know what you're physically capable of doing and what you're not. what you are and what you aren't capable of doing. So you have coaches, man, you got to make that play over 5 people. How many you expect me to make? Over all 6 of them in the middle.
Yeah, that's
like
you playing Madden or something, right?
Yeah, it's 7 defenders out there. Jason, get out, coach, call a better play. Tell the quarterback throw the dude. They got 1 person on them. Yeah. You know what I mean? So when you get a coach and they keep it real, and that's the thing. Guys that play the NFL and they have those little things, they also keep it real. They'll tell you, look, you know what? They don't want you to do it like this, but you got to go outside the lines on this play because that's the only way you can win with what they're asking you to do. It's the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
And going outside the lines may get you in trouble, but it has a high chance of succeeding, and you got to weigh out. Do I get in trouble with offense coordinator, or do I go outside the line and make the play and then everybody happy? But if you don't make the play, he gonna be mad. You got to weigh that stuff out, and that guy can kind of help you with that.
Yeah. And then and the second part of that question too, like when we talking about the GMs, no. So like if they never play, they don't have.
So listen, here's the thing when it comes to picking players. You can't have a formula. You can do stats. You can be Mel Kiper. You can do all those things. You can become very good for not playing this game. But there's something about a football player's eye that says that, you know what, that dude can play. This is why he can play. This is a measurable. I'll put my money on this particular player. And I bet you the guy that played this game, that's helping pick the players, he doesn't have to be to say all, but every person on the International Football League, in your top 3-4 people that are picking players, one of them should have NFL experience.
Yes,
one of them should, because it makes no sense to me of all the picks that we miss as the Eagles organization has in the last 7 years. Like, we've missed on a boatload of picks, and a lot of them has just been we're being too cute rather than picking the guy that can play. So that's where I am with that.
I got two names for you. Ozzie Newsome. Right there. Played the game, was a star, knows the game. And he's one of the best. He
may go down as one of the best in history. Yeah. Right? How many Hall of Fame? This dude drafted Ed and
he's
Ray. Like a bunch. He brought quality free agents to the team. Shannon Sharp. Like, it goes on and on and on. So yeah.
So there you go. That's all I gotta say about it. I mean,
yeah. So
the pedigree's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I will say though, like last part about that, the business side of it is understandable. But when you're talking about like actually looking at a player, just like you said, looking at a player and understanding how the locker room works, how to build a locker room, how to build a team, that is something that you can only learn from actually being in the locker room, from actually being part of the game. And that's the difference to me. A GM like Ozzie Newsome, he builds a locker room, he builds a team, he builds a contender, he builds the entire thing the right way. He doesn't just pick and choose. He doesn't just take guesses and have everyone else have to adjust to it. He builds the team the right way. He builds the organization, the locker room the right way.
Yeah. So,
there you go.
Amen, brother. Amen. Well, there you go. That's we are finished with another Q&A show.
Yes,
we're excited every week to talk to you guys. I want to say thank you to everyone that's responsible, to Adam and Jeff and Hunter and everyone that stepped in today. Q, to all the fans with the questions. Make sure that you're submitting your questions to insidethebirds@gmail.com. Make sure that you are direct messaging us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it may be, so we can get your questions answered. We're going to try our best to continue this up throughout the rest of the summer, and we'll have fresh content to you each and every week, new topics. Let us know. We talked on some very, very personal stuff with the Cooper stuff today, Riley Cooper information today, but we're willing to discuss those topics. So give us great questions and we'll make sure we give you great feedback. Thank you guys so much for making our show a success. We're trying to make it better and better. So give us great feedback. Q, let's say what's up to the people. Say what's goodbye to the people.
Yeah, no, it was a great one as well, man. And you know, I enjoy these times. I say it every week, and I truly feel like I learn something every week from you. And you know, it's been a great go so far, and let's continue to make it better, man. Let's continue to have fun with this. So.
We having fun. James, thank you for stepping in today. And to everybody that's responsible, again, peace out. This is Jason Avant, Quintin Mikell from the Q&A show, Inside the Birds platform. We representing.